And I do like the idea of, I am a martial artist, like I mentioned. In martial arts, you have the different ranks and the different belts you're trying to move forward with. I do like that with the finances as well. I like setting different benchmarks and seeing things grow. So it's not necessarily for any particular reason, but just to have little goals and have little stepping stones. I like the idea of making enough with investments to cover expenses. I think that would be a cool next target for us. And then there might be something else after that. So let's say it's the second million or whatever it is, and we look at that. Is this thing that I'm thinking about doing, and I'm assessing risk? How does it affect the vision that we have for our family? Is there going to be a decent chance that it's going to mess that up, or it's going to really affect things in a negative way that might take it off the table? If it looks like there's a pretty good shot, whether it's something I'm already doing and I see some growth trajectory, I might look at that and say, okay, let's go all in over here. And that's kind of what happened with this other business. I just noticed I guess kind of like a hole in the market, and I started dabbling and, hey, let's see what happens here. Not that it's been like all upwards, but I saw some good signs, whether it was people saying things or just the results that were happening, and then kind of putting more into it from there. That's kind of my strategy. I'm most likely not going to go all in with something without some kind of proof of concept.
Welcome, millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, a show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 389.
This is the podcast where everyday millionaires dish out all the deets on their investments and wealth building secrets. We are your hosts, Jason and Stacy, as we dive into the completely unscripted real world of millionaires. Our guests will reveal how they turned their piggy banks into treasure chests, share investment strategies that might just make you look at your 401k with renewed hope, and tell personal stories that may tug the heartstrings. So plug in and prepare to find out how regular folks like you and me turn their dreams into dollar signs. And don't worry, while we're here to get the goods, we've only edited to keep things family friendly.
Awesome. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Excited to have a great holiday week this weekend next. Hope everybody is staying safe and spending quality time with friends and family. As always, a few housekeeping things to begin with. We are always looking for new, great millionaire interviewees. If that's you and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. We're still looking for that individual that has a net worth of $400 million for episode 400 coming up here in a few weeks. Also, the schedule is up for Q1 and Q2 of next year. So several opportunities for interviewees to participate. Today on the show, we've got Billy and Melissa, and just a small disclaimer out there. We did have a few issues with the audio with Melissa that we were unable to fix completely in editing. Should be able to get most everything, but there may be a few points where you're unable to. So sorry about that. But going to be a great episode. They've got a net worth of $1 million. Billy is a business owner and kind of got assets spread across various asset classes. So going to be a great episode with them. And without any further delay, let's jump right into it today.
It's pretty wild. As we talked before hitting record, we got a bunch of kids running around, and it's a good life.
Awesome. And I can't wait to get into the details of kind of making the geoarbitrage switch from high cost of living to low cost of living and what that's enabled you to do. But before we get into that, the career trajectory and what you do, what's your net worth today?
Our net worth is, believe it or not, it's 400 million minus 399. That was a weird answer. But yeah, we're doing our $1 million holler.
Awesome. And how is the million allocated? How's that made up?
It is we're definitely would you say house rich? It's a lot of it's in our home. Our house is valued at about $460,000. It's paid off. Other than that, there's retirement. The retirement total is about, where did I have this? It's close to 250. for retirement. We have 180 in business equity, 42,000 in education funds. We have 20K in non-retirement accounts and 50K or so in cash.
Okay. And did you buy the house in cash when you moved from the high cost of living to low cost of living area, or did you just pay that off quick?
No, that is a little bit of a wild story. So I bought the house in 2005 in New York. Yeah, I overextended myself. Knowing what I know now, I really shouldn't have bought it, but things have a way of working out. I got into some trouble. I was okay for a little while. I was kind of basing my payments on a rental that I was expecting, and then we got married and made the mistake of, I know at the end of the show you asked like what's a mistake that you made, and I guess that was one of them. We're like, hey, we're married now, we don't need to rent out the house, and quickly got into some financial trouble. Before you know it, we're falling behind on payments. I'm getting like off your question here, so I'll try to stay on track. So we get off on payments. We ended up doing a loan modification back then. This was, I think it was like 2008, to lower our payments. We ended up with a $75,000 balloon payment, which I think that's pretty clear what that is. But just in case, it was a payment that was due at the end of the loan, and it kind of came off of what we were making payments on. For that reason, we had a goal to pay off our house, but we were a little nervous because we didn't have 75K. So we were paying it off, trying to time things, making extra payments. We were stacking cash outside of that. And then when we moved last year, moving from New York to here, we were able to pay off the house at that point. With the sale of the house, we sold the house for more than we bought here. And then we also had some cash to put towards it.
So hold on, let me get this straight. Did you bought a house out of state in 2005, or that was the house that you were living in?
I'm sorry, that was my house in New York that I was living in.
Okay.
So I bought it was a 2-family. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Okay. So it was local, and it was something that you were trying to turn into an investment / manage, but not necessarily live in at different times.
Yeah, we were living in the upstairs portion of the house after our old tenants had moved out. We had started in the downstairs. Then our tenants upstairs moved out, and he was going to utilize the downstairs as his personal training studio to increase his revenue with his clients and things like that. And that did not go as planned, and we ended up incurring behind in payments and all of that. So that was the house in New York before we moved here.
Okay, so you've got this kind of roller coaster of a real estate journey really early on, and then kind of played into your marriage a little bit. I mean, were you putting money to any investments, or was it just, hey, I'm getting the career off the ground, and hey, I'm supposed to buy a house, and we'll just try this real estate thing out?
Jace, there's actually there's a crazy twist and turn to this story. So I bought the house in 2005. It was we got married in 2008, and in 2010, is that correct? Or was it 11 with the car? So 2010, I'm getting ready to go to work. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. We're just newly married, about to start our family. I get a knock on the door, and open the door, and there's a muscular bald dude standing on my stoop, and I look past him and I see our brand new, not our supercar, but our brand new white Honda Accord hooked up to his tow truck. I didn't know what was flying. I was confused. I was embarrassed. I had all types of weird feelings. I begged him. I said, please unhook the car from the tow truck. I don't know what happened here. This must be a mistake. I can take care of it. We have some money. Please unhook the car. I have to get to work. He proceeds to tell me he's unable to unhook the car. The reason why they hooked the car up before the knock on the door is so that they don't feel bad for a guy like me and unhook the car. So he speeds off with my car attached to the tow truck. I'm figuring out what I'm going to tell my wife. I'm worried if neighbors saw. that led to what I call our financial awakening, where we uncovered the fact that I was completely unaware of, but we had $130K in non-mortgage debt. And we were really in a bad way. It was a stressful time in our lives, in our marriage. And that was a big part of our journey there.
So the car got repossessed then?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Wow. And the 130 in debt, was that just accumulation between consumer spending and car, whatever? I mean, just really hadn't paid attention to it.
Yeah, exactly. We had no idea what was flying. It was student loans for both of us. The credit card debt was definitely significant, but it wasn't the bulk of it. We had some credit card debt. We had medical bills. I had a big loan with my parents. When I bought the house, they had lent me money to help fix up the house. So that was a big part of it. I had loan with some friends for different things. It was all types of things.
Melissa, what was that conversation like after Billy told you the car got repossessed that day?
I'm like, I'm sorry.
It was not good. At the time I was working in New York City and taking trains, and he had to come get me in our other car that was paid for.
Yeah.
This old Honda.
Yeah.
And we had to go to the repossessive whatever place.
Which is a fun place if you ever want some entertainment.
Well,
right?
That was a different story.
Oh yeah.
We had problems. But we went to this place, and you had to pay, back payments and current payments, and it was terrible. We just didn't have the money, and we did not talk to each other that night, I think. It was very stressful. And then, we were getting letters on the house and thinking, oh my goodness, like if they take the car, they're probably not joking about the house.
Yeah, we didn't believe it. We didn't think they would actually come and take the car, but they proved us wrong. And we learned a lot about communication. We definitely very different. I think I was probably positive about it. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get the car back.
Yeah.
So the world and really our country's in a massive financial crisis in 08, and you're experiencing a personal financial crisis in a way. I mean, what's going through your minds at that point of having this financial awakening? Like obviously this turned the needle for you, but what started to change behavior that all of a sudden it was, hey, we're not going to end up in this spot again?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing was after going through all the emotions, getting kind of angry at myself, angry at whatever I was able to get angry at, and then just making that decision that we were relatively young. I know people listening understand the value of time and compound interest, and even now I could kick myself to realize like how much time we lost, but it was just saying that time was going to pass either way, and we're going to get into a better spot, and we just gotta start doing things differently. We really looked at things. It was crazy knowing what I know now. Like we had no clue how to budget. We were just spending money like without even thinking about it. Nothing was lining up. We were spending money we didn't have, and we changed. It was a extreme change. It was like we went from being like that to not being like that. Like it wasn't like gradual for us. It was like game on. We're gonna make some changes here.
So let's go through the rest of your investments. You've got a chunk in retirement accounts. Is that in mutual funds, stocks, or bonds?
That is most of it is in large cap mutual funds. Started recently diversifying a little bit more into different funds, like different crypto and AI, but not much. Most of it's in there. And then let's say half is in just index funds, Vanguard, the typical S&P 500.
And when did you start contributing to those accounts?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when this whole thing happened, another kind of debate you hear a lot of times is, do you pay off your high interest debt? Do you invest? When do you do this? When do you do that? We went the route of just knocking one goal out at a time. So we actually didn't invest the whole time we were paying off that debt. And it took us 5 years. We started maxing out both of our Roths. That was the first thing we did, and that was as soon as we paid off that initial debt, which was close to 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
That was in I don't think it was like 2016 maybe.
So 8 years of paying off debt, but you're starting to put money towards your investments. Is that correct?
We started putting money towards the investments as soon as we paid off all of our debt outside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you didn't actually start putting money into those investments till 2016.
No, and that's something that I
gotcha.
It's weird. Like every maybe 6 months or so, I'll start having a panic attack that I should have, but I still don't know. I think for us, it was the right move.
Yeah, that's what worked for us at the time.
Yeah, but now that I know the math, some of that interest was low on that debt, but it was just so overwhelming. We did want to get rid of it.
So 8 years of plowing, did you use a debt snowball or some other methodology, or was it just, hey, I know how to attack this, I just got to figure it out little by little?
Yeah, so just to be clear, it was 5 years of paying it down, and it was the debt snowball. We did it exactly like that, just paid it off from the balance amounts, lowest balance amount. It actually worked out for us because now, again, much more knowledge about things. Most of the higher interest debt had lower balances, so I guess it worked out in that sense regardless. But yeah, that's the approach we took. Like the loan with my mom was the biggest one, and according to the debt snowball, it was the last one because it was the biggest one, but it was also the one with the lowest interest, so that worked out.
Okay. And then you start putting money in investments, and then the other snowball started rocking and rolling for you. And here you are, millionaire status.
Yeah. That feels good to hear that. Yeah, we were really aggressive with that. We wanted to get out of that debt as fast as possible. We started trying to make extra money wherever we were able to. Melissa did some part-time things, and I was just cranking, doing whatever I could to make some extra money.
Yeah.
I think it motivated us to increase our income. We knew that we're only going to get a certain distance with the current income. So let's really try to work on ourselves, work on our business or whatever it was. So I think that was helpful.
Do you remember how much you were making when you first kind of started trying to pay off all that debt?
That's a good question. It was not much.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
It wasn't terrible.
But
close to 6 figures.
We always said in the beginning, our jobs, we were making decent income. We were just spending all of it and more.
Yeah.
So it was like, after we decided to really get on board with a plan, we actually made less. We were able to get out of this debt.
Here's another twist. I had a job. So I would say, without looking at our tax forms and whatnot, I would say it was close to 6 figures at that point was our income. But right around that same time, I was a professional martial artist and I loved it and I was making good money. At the same time, I started a business that was growing on the side. It was taking up more of my time. I hired this coach and we were talking one day. I remember, I'll never forget, I was sitting in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot and he knew our situation and he had me do some math. The job was good. The martial arts job was good, but we did the math. I can't remember exactly now, so many years later, but let's say it was like I was making 30 something an hour or whatever it was. He's like, look, you're making this doing those hours. Now look what you're making with your business. And it was like 400 an hour with the business. It wasn't a lot of hours, but it was like a drastic difference. And at that point I got convinced. I said, okay, I need to go into this with more energy and more attention. And I ended up leaving that other related career behind and going full force into the current business.
That's pretty cool. So if you would have stuck around in MMA a little longer, we would have saw you on TV last week at the Sphere. Maybe.
I don't know.
I did. I did contemplate that. I came up, started jiu-jitsu in 1999, and some of the guys that I started training with ended up doing pretty well, getting to the UFC. And I remember that's another thing I would constantly think about is what if I would have been as into it and as hardcore as them, but things have worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
And I have my teeth and all that stuff. So.
It's pretty crazy though, like that industry and what they've done, what Dana White's done, and really for Titus and a lot of other people. I know it's not just them,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
has really made a brand and made careers out of that. When for a while it was kind of an underground, almost like you got to have another job to then pursue this hobby that could be perceived as professional, but you're not making enough money probably from it.
No, it's
But now
100%
it's,
true.
I mean, those top guys are making what other professional athletes do in other sports.
No, 100%. I knew some fighters that were in the UFC back then, and I've seen their contracts, and you're 100% right about that.
That's awesome. So fast forward these last few decades, call it, of kind of all of these roller coasters. I mean, emotionally, how have you been able to navigate this together?
That's good.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, our faith is a big part of our lives and our marriage, and our church has been a great foundation for just kind of coming back to priorities and things that are important. And through our journey, we've been able to really help other couples with different avenues of getting out of debt and increasing their income, or learning to invest. And so I think our faith has definitely grounded us, but I think also just being of one vision and one mindset of where we want to go in our family, with our family, and our future planning. We really haven't deviated from goals because we're in agreement, and I think that really keeps us solid and grounded. And we're teaching these principles to our kids and encouraging them to have a healthy mindset of money and values when it comes to spending and saving and things of that nature. So
It's pretty cool. My daughter, one of my daughters is 9, and just the other day, she's like, "Dad, can you?" I don't know. She needed help with her money. She's like, "Can you help me count this or something?" And she like pulls out like this like wad of cash, and I'm like, "Man, I'm like, you have more money than Daddy." So it's pretty cool to see them way, I mean, light years ahead of where I was at their age.
That's cool. So at this point, where do you go from here? Do you have a target net worth, or is there a passive income goal or an impact goal that you have in your life?
Those are really good things to think about. The impact part is pretty cool. We do enjoy giving, so we haven't necessarily talked about a specific goal in that regard. But I do know that we did start to increase our giving as things have moved further along. As far as the net worth goal or the passive income goal, right now thank God I'm energetic and healthy and really excited about the things I get to do. So I don't necessarily worry about tons of passive income right now. I do like growing the assets, growing the net worth, so that we can, who knows, like we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, but it's nice to have different options. And I do like the idea of, I am a martial artist, like I mentioned. In martial arts, you have the different ranks and the different belts you're trying to move forward with. I do like that with the finances as well. I like setting different benchmarks and seeing things grow. So it's not necessarily for any particular reason, but just to have little goals and have little stepping stones. I like the idea of making enough with investments to cover expenses. I think that would be a cool next target for us. And then there might be something else after that. So let's say it's the second million or whatever it is. That's cool. I like the idea of the impact goal. We've been giving all along ever since the start of our journey. We have increased our giving since we have reached this level, and we want to continue to do so. I think maybe talking about an impact goal would be a cool idea. So the answer is we don't have one, but I do like the idea. One thing I'll say is we were able to use our financial position to sort of create this new life. Now we're living here in Middle Tennessee in a different city. I'm able to work on a new business while I have a current business that's still in New York. So from a goal standpoint, want to continue to grow that business because just really enjoying what I get to do and serving people. And as far as the money goals, I just like the idea of these little stepping stones. Okay, first we got out of debt, and then we did this, and then we did that, and now we're millionaires. And what's next? So maybe it's developing enough assets or investments that will kick off our expenses. I think that would be pretty cool as sort of a next step for us. If our investments could earn the amount of our annual expenses, I would feel really cool about that, really good about that. And then maybe there's something after that. I think just creating these little benchmarks over time. Maybe it's $1 million in liquid. Maybe it's fill in the blank. I don't think the thing that matters so much other than it's just having something to work towards.
Today's show is sponsored by Wine Access. Wine Access has been selling some of the world's most inspiring wines for 20 years, and they just launched a new wine club experience called The Waitlist, where each shipment is curated by a culinary icon. The first shipment is with Wine Spectacular Grand Award winner Emerald's. Yes, that Emerald in New Orleans, which will be followed by Atomics, a 2-star Michelin restaurant and the top U.S. restaurant on the world's 50 best list. The wines included are featured on these restaurant wine lists and included recommended food pairings. And if some of the world's best restaurants are willing to stake their reputations on these wines, then you know they're good. These wines ship directly to your door. The Waitlist Wine Club. Visit wineaccess.com/waitlist and use promo code Millionaire for $25 off your first shipment. And thanks again to Wine Access for supporting today's episode.
Do you plan on eventually trying to retire early, or is that really not even entered the thought process?
He asks me that all the time. You think I'll ever retire? And I'm like, probably not, or you'll probably always do something. I think that's the entrepreneur in him. But, I think we want to maybe open up more opportunities as, his business maybe grows a little more or becomes a little more independent in some ways. He's really into speaking and doing a lot of that in his industry. And so I think we'd like to see a lot of flexibility open up for us in terms of travel and just kind of enjoying, I guess, our money in that way. But if you add anything.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
I usually ask this in rapid fire, but what's on the bucket list? What are we looking to travel to or do?
That's a good question. She has better answers than that for me. I am super simple. I don't have a tremendous desire to go to a ton of different places. I do think of Israel. I think a trip to Israel would be really cool. I have thought of Brazil, but I know you have some other places.
Yeah, I guess some of your typical but great answers are Europe and maybe Greece or places like that. But one place I do want to visit, and I said I would love to do it for my 40th, which is next year, is the Grand Canyon. I've never been. I hear it's spectacular, and it's just inspiring to go and see it in person. So that's one place I'd like to go.
Billy's taking notes right now.
Yeah, you can say you heard it here. That will happen. That's the least I can do. A lot of spouses might say something that's like, $80,000 trip. Grand Canyon. Come on, how could I not do that?
That's awesome. My wife jokes all the time that, when we get in these types of settings, whether it's podcasting or having people over or whatever, she's like, I always learn something new that you've never told me that's on either your list or that we've done or that we're doing that. I'm like, well, sometimes it just slips, I guess. Enjoy the Grand Canyon. It's quite spectacular. It is. Nice. It is amazing. It's a good time. Make sure you spend a few days, and if you've got time to go pop down to Sedona as well, I highly recommend that as well.
Hey, noted.
Yeah. So at this point, though, is with this entrepreneurial fire, how do you assess risk in your life going through everything that you've gone through and having business, but also achieving millionaire status? I like to ask entrepreneurs this question because your risk profile has drastically changed, I would imagine, and your risk tolerance over the course of the last 2 decades. Talk us through a little bit of that.
It's interesting that you asked that. I'm actually delivering a workshop tomorrow for a group of business owners, and that's one of the topics is balancing those long-term rewards with the risks they're taking. Talked about the idea of looking at the ROI. What's the difference of investing here versus putting the time and money here? And one of the thoughts I have is I like the idea of investing in myself. It's interesting. I know it's not uncommon that I'm willing to risk myself. I'll put myself out there. I'll take a chance, whether that's a business or something like that, much more easily than I would, let's say, investing in something else, or especially something I don't know about. So it's, how much do I understand about this? What's the ROI? Melissa mentioned our vision. We are sort of in the process of creating our third 3-year vision. So it will have been 9 years of doing the vision. So far it's been 6. And we look at that. Is this thing that I'm thinking about doing and I'm assessing risk, how does it affect the vision that we have for our family? Is there going to be a decent chance that it's going to mess that up, or it's going to really affect things in a negative way that might take it off the table? If it looks like there's a pretty good shot, whether it's something I'm already doing and I see some growth trajectory, I might look at that and say, okay, let's go all in over here. And that's kind of what happened with this other business. I just noticed I guess kind of like a hole in the market, and I started dabbling and, hey, let's see what happens here. Not that it's been like all upwards, but I saw some good signs, whether it was people saying things or just the results that were happening, and then kind of putting more into it from there. That's kind of my strategy. I'm most likely not going to go all in with something without some kind of proof of concept.
Yeah, I would just add too, I think, coming out from such a difficult time of paying off so much debt and putting yourself at risk for so many years, it's like now we're kind of in a place where we're able and comfortable to take a little more risk, and whether it be investment or business, and we feel stable enough where we can say, okay, this is safe to kind of go after it.
When you say feel more comfortable to take the risk, is it the asset base that you've built up? Is it the income stream that you have? Is it the experience? Like, what allows you to do that? Or is it a combination of everything?
I think it's a combination. Yeah, I think it's being, like Melissa said, being more stable. I think it's, even though a lot of our money is tied up, whether it's in the house or retirement, it is nice to know underneath that it is there. And I think that helps a little bit. Yeah, I think moving here in some ways was a smart financial move, but in a lot of ways it was a huge risk. We moved 1,000 miles away from the brick and mortar business that I was operating to a place that we really didn't know much of anybody, and just really started working on a new business. But yeah, there's a couple of ways that we think through that. We do like this best case, worst case thing, and take a piece of paper. I know there's no video here, but you make a cross on the paper, so line through the middle both ways, and now you have 4 quadrants, and you have your option A, whatever it is. It could be moving, it could be starting a business, it could be getting into real estate if that's something that you're interested in doing, and what is the best case scenario, but that's realistic, and what is the worst case scenario that is realistic, and doing that for both options and just laying that out there and looking at those, giving it a good hard look and stress testing it after you've kind of run through whatever numbers you need to, and then say, well, that worst case scenario is realistic and it's not something I'm willing to take a chance on, then I'm not going to do it. Or maybe, that would really stink, but it's not going to kill us. And that was kind of the case with this. What's the worst case scenario? The other business doesn't work. We have to move back. These things would be kind of terrible, but they're not going to kill us. And it was worth taking a shot on that. And it worked out in that sense, thankfully.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. And I'd love to hear answers on these from both of y'all. What's the most expensive pair of shoes or pants that you purchased?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
I was thinking about this one. I would say somewhere between $120 and $150, and it was probably a pair of good running sneakers.
Yeah, I've never spent that much on shoes, surprisingly. expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe
15?
50.
50, okay. That's a lot.
Okay.
$50, jeez.
$150 sneakers.
What about the most expensive meal out?
That's a good one.
We
Yeah.
went to a French restaurant and
Yeah.
I didn't see the bill, so.
Yeah, I have a couple of answers for that one. Do you remember the very recent one? So there's been a few times, I don't know if this counts, where I just paid for a lot of people, and it might have been up to, one time was 500, another time was 1,000. But I don't know if I count that because I was treating other people. But for myself, this happened like just maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got invited out and it was with a bunch of ballers and ordering all types of stuff. And nobody ever talked about the bill. And I'm sitting there, I'm sweating a little bit, but I'm enjoying myself. And then sure enough, the bill comes. And of course, somebody says, why don't we just split the whole thing? Meanwhile, I didn't get a bunch of drinks and all that stuff. But that was probably the most I spent on a meal for myself. And I don't know if you remember how much that was. I think it was like 140 or something like that. I was like, geez, that's a lot for one meal. But it was worth it. It was a good time.
Hey, that's coming from a guy that lived in out in the high cost of living area. So that's not too bad.
Okay, good.
Hey man, I've that's not about me, but I can relate. I can relate.
Okay, yeah.
What about the most expensive trip or vacation that you've had? Good
question. Nothing too crazy.
That is a good question. It might be our family camp.
Yeah, it's like almost $4,000 now.
We go on a yearly family camp trip. We stay at a resort with a cabin, and it's a lot of fun.
A lot of activities.
Lots of activities. We have like
daycare
neighbors every year, and it's just a great time. So that cost has risen to
close to 4. Yeah.
So I would say that's probably our most expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the dumbest thing that you ever wasted money on?
Man, I mean, where do we start? It's hard to say. One story I have is when I was a saver starting right out of the gate. I worked various jobs. I did everything from delivering pizzas to getting chickens and all types of crazy things. But I was a saver. I saved a bunch of money. I was personal training and making pretty good money. I was about 19 years old. And I saved up close to 20 grand, and I had somebody that I knew, I'll leave it at that. They told me to put it in an aggressive stock or aggressive group of stocks. And it went down. It was right during the tech bubble, and it went down quite a bit. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I got so freaked out. I had somebody who was helping me with it. I ended up talking to them. They're like, "Oh, don't be married to a fund." And I ended up, I don't even know what happened to it. I took it out to do something else with it. And then ultimately it did come back. And now I did some math the other day. I don't know why I do this to myself, but it would have been like, I think 867,000 or something like that if I would have just left it in a basic index fund.
Mm-hmm.
Not now, but in when I'm older, if I left it in there through now and through the next, let's say, few decades.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say for me, I would have gone cheaper in college.
Yeah.
I think going for
Wasn't worth it.
was not.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have gotten just as good of an education with the state campus. So I regret taking out all those loans and doing all that. So.
Okay. What's something you spent way too much money on but you don't regret?
I like taking care of myself. I spend a lot on beauty products and things like that.
I don't mind that. For me, I am like a personal development junkie. So anything that involves like improving efficiency or me learning things, it could be a course, it could be an event. And just a little example recently is I got a custom made bookcase, and for me, it was expensive. It was $900, and I just love it. I just love the way it looks, the way it feels. I enjoy being in my office more. So that was totally worth it. Custom.
You get some good utility out of $900 bookcase then if it's something. Yeah. I love it. How'd you earn your first buck? What was your first job?
First job?
I don't mind.
Mine was at
Nice.
I was 16 years old, had my working paper, so excited. And it was a very interesting place to work.
Nice.
Do you remember how much you made?
Oh my goodness, how much? I don't know what minimum wage. Could I have been $10
Maybe on Long Island.
I'm a little bit, yeah. Minimum wage for me when I started was like $4.25, but I'm a little bit older. I don't know if this counts, but my mom would go to a bank. It was called Citibank, and it was every Saturday. And she would go to Citibank, and then she would go to Finest, which was grocery shopping, and she would leave me at the bank. And the bank manager would take me outside, and I would clean up the bank property. It was mostly cigarette butts, and I would go around picking up all these cigarette butts out of the bushes and out of the property and put them in a bag and throw them out. And then my mom would come back after shopping and pick me up. They would escort me back. I was really young. I was probably 7 or 8. And they would take me in the back where all the money was, and they would hand me a nice crispy $5 bill to thank me for cleaning up the cigarette butts. That was my first gig.
Nice. What was a key lesson you learned from childhood?
I would say if you want something, you got to work for it. Persistence, perseverance. Lots of examples with sports where I just had to be the hardest working person, and no one's going to hand it to you. Got to work for it.
It's going to sound maybe cliche, but my mother used to say to me all the time, "This too shall pass."
Nice.
And it's really true. You go through a rough time, it's difficult, but you can get to the other side. And so that kind of stuck with me quite a bit.
Nice.
What financial habit do you think will change the most since you become a millionaire, after you become a millionaire?
I would say something that comes to mind is more of a mindset thing. I find myself just sort of worrying less. Not that there's no worry, but just in the old days when we were working out of debt, I would be so pent up about every little penny, and we're trying to reconcile our accounts, and I'm sitting there for 3 hours because I can't figure out about 75-cent discrepancy. And where now it's hard to get out of that mindset because we're in it for so long. But now if the kids need $100 for this or $100 for that, it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, I think too. If you talk in terms of mindset, I think there's a lot of hope for the future. A lot more hope and around money and around our financial future. And so I think it's not scary anymore.
Yeah. And then I would say slightly elevated lifestyle, but nothing extreme. Yeah. We're eventually going to get nicer cars, and we already have some more trips planned this year than we probably have in the past, and things like that.
What kind of cars are we getting? I'm excited.
Don't be too excited.
Hey man, this title's going to be like from Repo to Ferrari or something, you know?
Well, the car that I want, honestly, it's I think. But did I hear it from you? I heard it on some podcast. They said the cars that hold the most value, it's not the one I want, but it's close. Is that what I heard was the Toyota Tundra. It holds its value the best out of any other car. I don't know if that's true or if it's just something that's going around. It. Yeah. So
Toyota or Lexus typically is always high on those ratings.
Yep. So I'm not the type of guy that's pulling a bunch of stuff with a truck, but at the same time, I'm in God's country now, and I think I need a nice pickup truck. So I'll do something like that.
You can never go on with a truck, man.
Nice.
What's your college GPA?
What is it?
College GPA.
Oh, good.
Oh, I should know this. May cum laude. What is that?
I think so. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like Mr. Fancy Pants, but I got summa cum laude, so it was like I was pretty good. I think it was like 3.8.
All right.
But that was by the way, that was like my second run at college. I mean, kind of. I was I did a couple of years and then went back.
What's the craziest thing What's the craziest thing you've ever done to earn money?
I don't know.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The corner of a very busy kill people.
What about me? I would say
I think sweeping the parking lot when you're
another two other jobs I had. I'll mention is skinning chickens. That was like a really not fun situation, and I worked at a catering hall. And let's just say that this was not the job for me. Between burning a patron's hand with a coffee pot and spilling a full tray of marinara sauce on a white wall immediately before a cocktail hour was starting for a fancy event and all types of other things. That was pretty crazy for me.
Okay. You have $10K to spend in consumerism. Where are you spending it?
I'm going to give it to her and she'll take care of that.
Let's see. Probably some new clothes for the kids, clothes for us. Maybe a nice dinner out.
Nice.
Maybe a night in Nashville.
I'm taking notes here, Jace.
That's why we ask these questions.
That's good. I appreciate it.
What else? Massages for a month. Let's see.
I'm going to be the most boring guest. I would do I'd get a whole bunch of books and I would go to some seminars and some courses and I'd learn more about myself and try to get better. And maybe a house project. We want to do a nice little fire pit set up in the back. So something like that probably wouldn't cost too much.
Yeah.
Okay. What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
That rich people are not nice people.
Yeah, you thought that, right?
Growing up, I think that was sometimes even unintentionally, that would be the record that would play.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of wonderful rich people out there, and you don't even know that they're rich, but they're doing wonderful things with their money for their communities and people around them.
Yeah. I'm about to go deep with my answer here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So this was big for me. It was that I used to think, this has nothing to do with money, directly at least, but I used to think that it was all about just kind of pushing past things, pushing forward, and just sort of staying positive, moving into the future. And I realize now that without addressing the past, we know that it's doomed to repeat itself. So just learning from the past, not necessarily dwelling on it, but not ignoring it and learning from it in terms of how I can relate to people and how I behave in certain scenarios. That's been something that's been eye-opening for me.
Awesome. Any last words of advice for somebody who's just starting out on their journey?
Let me have you finish because you'll give us a nice ending here. The one thing I would say, and there's a lot that I would say, but if I had to say one, it would be the old Jim Rohn quote, which says, "Work hard on your job, you'll make a living. Work hard on yourself, and you'll make a fortune."
That's good. Yeah, I would say just keep pursuing doing good things with your money and smart things with your money. Educate yourself. Get help where you need it. We started and we didn't know what to do, and we got the support we needed. And don't give up, but also be grateful for where you're at and what you have, and that things will improve if you just keep pushing through and working on it.
Mic drop.
Awesome. That's Billy and Melissa with a net worth of $1 million. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Jace. Appreciate you and appreciate all you're doing.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.